Okay. What is up?
What's going on?
Okay, so this is episode 3 now of INTJ Versus. And today we have a really good friend of mine. Her name is Lily. Hi. And so it will be INTJ versus INTP. So let's get into it. That's literally what I was doing. There's gonna be something edited into there.
Right.
So, okay, so Lily, if you have like a Twitter or Instagram or anything, I'll have you say it in the beginning and the end, just like if anyone wants to keep up with Lily.
All right. Well, I'm mainly on Instagram. I'm at Lily Bo Billy. Billy is with 2 L's. There we are.
Okay, awesome. And you guys know I'm at Vanita VJ on Twitter and This Evil Bunny on Instagram. It's been like a long time in between my last INTJ versus. I did it with Fanny, and if you remember, it was ENTJ. That was like at least 4 or 5 months ago. So I think likewise with Lily, she's familiar with MBTI, but she maybe just like a refresher, like tell me like how did you find it?
It's actually really funny because I was working at a church nonprofit in the area, and they were big on emotional health and intelligence. And so within the pastoral staff and volunteers or like people who were part-time, they really encouraged people to take myers-briggs or any kind of personality test, because they want you to kind of know yourself, understand what your boundaries are, what you crave, what you enjoy, and all those things. And it was when I first heard the concept of like introverts get energy from being alone,
right,
and it made me, because up until then I was always like, I'm just antisocial. But it's not, because I had friends,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But it was more like, oh, it made sense. Yeah, I can be with people, but I'm already thinking about like the recovery afterwards, where like I'm like, all right, I have a party this weekend, so Sunday I'm blacking it out. And it's like pajamas and movies, because I need to like get back to myself. But that was how I was first introduced to him.
Nice. Yeah, I think people get introduced to it that way also, like career tests and career assessments, to try and think of like, you know, what your tendencies are and playing to your strengths. Like the book Gifts Differing, you know, based on Carl Jung's. So what I want to do is I want to list the functions that an INTJ has, and I'm going to list the functions that an INTP has, and then we're going to go through each one and see how they kind of link up. Okay. So an INTP leads with introverted thinking as their dominant. As their auxiliary, it is extroverted intuition. Their tertiary is introverted sensing, and then their inferior is extroverted feeling. For an INTJ, our cognitive functions.
It's just bottom of
the feeling's just like at the bottom. For INTJ, we lead with introverted intuition. Our auxiliary is extroverted thinking. Our tertiary is introverted feeling, and our inferior is extroverted sensing. So our sensing's at the bottom, and your feeling is at the bottom. With both of us being thinker women, we're both thinker women, and we're both intuitives, and we're both introverts.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we got that in common. And you know, it's really difficult to be a thinker woman, because most people really expect you to kind of fill that role of like this nurturing person and all those things. And so when you don't, they're like, why are you so cold?
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm just like, this is how I show I care.
Right.
But it's definitely been part of my life with like interacting with other people. Oh
yeah, absolutely. And absolutely same here. So we have like a lot in common. What's interesting though is that our preferences, like for introverted and, you know, extroverted feel, is the same, but our functions, we actually share none of the same cognitive functions, right? So basically what that would mean is that the direction that our feelings, thinking, everything goes is the opposite.
Oh, really?
So like, for example, like if I say, for example, you lead with introverted thinking, right? whenever a function is introverted, it's more, it goes deep. And whatever function you have that's extroverted, it's more expansive. It goes outward, so it's more like, it's more shallow in that way, right? So everyone has the same amount. And I also just want to say, like, and you know, guys that are watching, you obviously know, we all have all of the cognitive functions.
I saw in the other video.
Yeah, so we all have it. It's just mostly about our tendencies and the way we use them. Something I probably won't be getting into in this video are like shadow functions. So actually everything else you don't use is on the opposite, which forms your kind of like in the grip personality. So it's kind of like, for example,
it like when you're backed up against the wall kind of thing?
Yeah, stressed out, depressed, whatever, and then you become this other person. So for me, like in the grip, I become like an ESFP. So I become just like a person that's consuming a lot of food, or just like, you know, just really using all my senses in the most unhealthy way possible. You're in the grip, that's the opposite, is just ESFJ. Which, well, I don't want to like bring everyone, because I'm too disorganized to try and bring people in something.
It's so funny because Aisha, my roommate, had asked me yesterday, for everyone who doesn't know, yesterday she just randomly, this is why I love her, she randomly goes, what would your Bogart be like? And I was like, honestly, I think it was, like, for me, the deepest fear, or like the thing that pushes me to the darkest brink, is like anything where I have to admit a failure. It is just like complete breaking of spirit if I have to like say I can't do something. It's just, and that has been like a major developmental, like, personal challenge in the past few years of like learning how to do that.
When you say something that you can't do something, like in terms of helping people or career or school, or in what capacity?
In all capacities. I mean, yeah, like mainly, I think with friends it's a little bit easier if they say, can you help me with something, and I'll do it out of love and I'll say yes, or I have that safety of being like, I'm really sorry, I can't meet these demands.
Right.
But it's different with a job or with school, where you're like, I can't do this paper. You know, like they're not going to be like, well, it's all right. You know
it's true. Yeah.
So it's a bit stricter, and because of that, and it's like I feel like I need to say I can't do something, but then I don't have the space to do it or to express that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden that plus that equals failure. And there's something about me that like hasn't learned how to handle that.
Right.
So it's funny that we're doing this interview now, because I'm in a place right now where I'm like, this is a major life lesson.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
How do I handle? And other people are kind of like, it's so easy for me to say I can't do something. You know, what is that like? It would be really nice to know. But yeah, that's like mixed in with all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's certain behaviors that we retreat to that's comforting for us, that are like our personal like coping mechanisms to feel like safe and whole. Yeah. And that's definitely something that we explore too. So like the first thing I always ask any intuitive, which it's only been intuitives so far that I've been interviewing, is how old were you, and under what circumstances did you find out that you were weird?
Under what circumstances? I think quite young, mainly because I would very calmly, like if my friends were doing wild, rambunctious things, I'd be like, no thanks, you know? But like it would be like, do you, but that's really not for me. Or like it very calmly, I cannot tell you how many times I've been to a party and people are like, why do you have a book in your bag? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, because I know for a fact within like an hour, I'm going to need like some time.
That's perfect.
So it was just very kind of like, that's just how I function. So
yeah.
It's pretty much always been like that.
Even like as a kid or
Oh yeah. Even like my parents would take me to family parties and there would be plenty of kids playing with toys, but I would be the kid in the coat room in like the bedroom where all the people put their coats, and I'm just sitting there in a corner reading.
Oh my god, I was the exact same way. I was telling someone that for like Christmas parties and stuff, I'd go in my aunt's room and like I'd watch Cartoon Network and be reading and have my books. And my uncles would be like, why are you like letting your daughter like, do homework? It's like, no, she likes that. She likes writing.
Yeah. The extra credit was great.
Exactly. Same way.
Yeah.
One thing that I notice a lot with thinker women that we tend to feel like guilt about is that I think that we have a better grasp of personal boundaries and in saying no. And I think that people aren't used to, nor do they tend to like even want to respect women that are like, oh, this is not for me, or I don't want to do this.
Like, actually, no, thank you.
Exactly. It's just like, wait, what? It becomes a bit of a shock. So my question to you is, how do you like navigate when people want you to do something, you're just like, I can't do that?
That's a tough one. Only because like sometimes it's just not, you just can't, or like you can, but you don't feel like you can. Like for family things, it's, my sister and I were joking about my mom because over the holidays, it was really funny because I took her at her word and I should have known better. But she was like, come over Thanksgiving, dinner's at 5, so come over at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I think, great, I'll be there at 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then all of a sudden I'm getting texts in the morning where it's like, why aren't you helping me clean? Why did you not come here to cook? And I'm like, because you told me, like I'm just following the instructions. And she was like, but you should have known that I would need help. And I was texting my sister, right? I was texting my sister. I'm like, see, that's how you know mom and I are different.
Yeah.
Because if I needed something, I would very clearly say, this is what I need, and this is what we will do. This is the plan. Whereas mom is very kind of like, you should just know me already, And it's like, I do, but my brain doesn't function in that. I had to... In that moment, I had to like step out of my own mind and into hers and be like, of course she would want me to help, and it's understandable.
Right.
But in those moments, I'm just kind of like, oh, I didn't know. So if it's like family stuff and whatever, it's more just like I just do it because I know that's what's expected. But to say to other people like I can't or whatever, or like I don't want to do these things. Yeah, it's sort of easy, but I sort of go with the flow because I'm not that strict on like I don't want to do this and it's not going to get done.
I see what you mean.
Like I'll bend a little, but you'll know that it's not what I want.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much how I've managed those boundaries.
Okay, that's good. So I'm gonna read like a definition of at least 2 of these functions, just because like I know about them, but I can't explain it. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Introverted thinking definition. Okay, so her primary function is introverted thinking. So like your primary dominant function is basically almost 80% of the way that you work and operate in the world. It's so old and ingrained in you that it's been there since you were a child.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, it's probably something you're not even conscious that you're doing, but you're doing it, right? So for introverted thinking, I'm gonna like read the definition and just tell me like what that even conjures to you in relation to yourself. Okay, so introverted thinking is defined as a function that is primarily used inward. People use introverted thinking. They want the world to make sense in a logical manner. They form an internal framework of how the world works. It is constantly being modified and improved through life experience and experiments.
Oh yes, very much so. I think one of the earliest or like most profound insights I had about myself is being able to actually verbalize that I can't stand stagnation. And there's something like whatever it is with personal development, with career development,
right,
with living circumstances, like it all. I like. How can I say it? I like order, but I don't like permanence for all of those things. So after a while, it's kind of like, how is this evolving? How is this growing? Always moving forward. Always moving forward. So that makes perfect sense because I'm always kind of looking or even questioning my own beliefs, and I never really put solid boundaries around them. I always leave room for, but what if? And
absolutely. Yeah.
And I can't even handle the idea of not having the what if. That gives me anxiety because I'm like, there's so much. How can you think that anything would be that solidly defined? So yeah, I think even like in conversations with people where, they kind of like see me as this very logical person, but then there's always that room for like, yeah, but you could get a little creative here and there. And those two things can easily mingle and coexist. So yeah, I relate to that entirely.
Yeah, and I think I would definitely label INTPs as definitely being one of the more creative types. In terms of like questioning things that haven't been questioned yet.
But it's an interesting combination because it's a logical creative. So you're very analytical and you're always in your head and you're always processing and coming to a conclusion, but the conclusion is not concrete. You sort of enjoy that, what's the word? At least for me, I enjoy that constant like gears turning, but also the flexibility of the molding.
That's almost like a perfect definition of introverted thinking.
Oh yeah.
Because you know why? I'm comparing it to what I use, which is extroverted thinking as my auxiliary. And it's the exact opposite. It's like for me, I really enjoy that structure. Like I want enough information just so I can apply it to the external world. Introverted thinkers are going to stay with the problem a little longer. They're going to stay with it a little longer. For me, it's just like, okay, is that what we're doing? Okay. And for me, I'm not going to pay attention to those details. I want to trim the fat. And introverted, they're not looking at it that way. Yeah, they chew the fat. You want that whole experience and you want to take the problem further, which is why they've said that most likely they feel like whoever ends up like curing cancer, will end up being like an INTP.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like even in personal things, like I'll talk to friends about something and I'll say like, oh, I'm going through this thing, and they're like, when did this happen? I'm like 4 months ago, and they're like, why did you never, But I'm like, no, that was the time that I needed to like even be comfortable or get to the point where I'm like, now I can talk about it, now I can verbalize because I've processed and now I can present it. Like whereas other people would be like, this happened to me today, let's deal. I can't. That's like that's totally different.
I'm gonna read you the names of some famous INTPs.
Oh cool, okay.
Famous.
I think I saw this in the website the other day too, but it's good to know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Okay, you guys got Albert Einstein.
Nice.
Charles Darwin.
With the rules,
Yes. Let's see. Descartes, am I saying
Descartes.
that? Descartes. Okay. Hannah Arendt. I know her.
Yeah.
Let's see. Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, okay, all right, cool.
You guys all
the philosophers.
Yeah.
The philosophers, the scientists, the ones with like these methods.
Oh, you guys got Abraham Lincoln? You guys have like 8 presidents. What is this shit? They got Madison Lincoln, Quincy Adams.
I'll see you guys in 2020.
John Gerald Ford. That is so crazy. Okay, let's just see a couple of authors.
But they're all men, aside from Hannah Arendt. Like that's it.
Because, and I don't know the exact percentage, but the percentage of female INTPs is like it's very
decimals.
low. Yeah. I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, women do tend to fall into like women are more likely feelers, men are more likely thinkers. So, but there is a percentage there. So here's a couple females. Harper Lee, of course. They said MIA.
As in the rap?
Yeah.
Ah, nice.
That would make a lot of sense.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm in really good company now.
Okay, one more. You guys got Tina Fey too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about introverted thinking. Okay, so here's your auxiliary, which is extroverted intuition. And extroverted intuition, as an INTJ, we lead with introverted intuition. So like I said, I think that the introverted thinking goes perfectly with extroverted intuition because extrovert intuition literally is the what ifs. And then introverted thinking is, okay.
So is the introverted thinking like your default setting? Like that's where you're
you personally,
that's your neutral.
Yeah, that's your neutral.
Right.
You've had introverted thinking since you were a kid. Right. Extrovert intuition, like that adventurous spirit or wanting to explore. That's probably something you developed maybe early teens.
Okay. All right. I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So whereas with like introverted intuition, it's more like, what is the universal principle joining everything? Like
for you.
For me, this is for introverted intuition, like what's the universal thing? What's the underlying thing that joins everything? And then extrovert intuition is the opposite. It's more like, it's like what is the universal thing that everything can connect to?
Oh, I see. Okay. So you're saying mine would be extroverted intuition.
Yeah.
That's the auxiliary.
Yeah, that's something you develop in your early teens, and that's like, it's a and it also is the reason why you're a perceiver, because being that you're always looking for those connections, you're looking for the new thing. You can't be rigid.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's impossible for you to be rigid. So the pros of that is that the cons does tend to be a type of, I don't want to say unreliability, but just kind of like moving at your own pace as opposed to the world's pace.
Yeah, a harsh word would be flakiness. But I like that. Just moving my own pace.
Yeah, it's true. You're not gonna move to the world's pace, which is why I think
to my detriment. Usually.
Yeah, that's why I think of perceivers overall as having less stress, because as a judger, which is like going back to the preferences, as a judger, I am gonna take that on. I'm gonna be like, okay, here's the deadline. Oh my god, now I hear full anxiety attack.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Which I have.
Yeah.
Right. But because I'm more kind of like moving at my comfort, you know what I mean? And I'm kind of like solidly confident in that, then I'm like, it's fine, even though everything is not.
Yeah, everything could be whizzing around you, but I feel like people with extrovert intuition can find a sort of peace.
Yes.
They can find a peace,
which
stillness.
is interesting, because one of the biggest life lessons, and to my mom will repeat this to us to this day, and she's been telling us since we were children, is find your center and stay in that. And it's funny as a kid, because I would be like, do you mean like just find a space and stay there? You know, like I was very literal about it, and I would just imagine like standing on like a 1 square foot tile in a way where I'm like, this is my safe zone and that's it. You know what I mean? Like that's how my literal freaking brain would go. But then she was like, no, just stay true to your inner workings, to your core, and follow that, listen to that, honor that, respect that, and nurture it in a way where you're always kind of like flourishing, but understand yourself. So it totally makes sense that would be something that's part of the
Absolutely. And I notice also with people that have the combination of extroverted intuition and introverted sensing, which we'll get to, they're great at meditating, or they're drawn to meditate. Are you drawn to meditation at all?
Not, how can I say it? Not yet. Because I find like I'll just get distracted, you know what I mean? Like there's way too many things going on in my head. But there is something about, it's interesting they mentioned that recently, where I'm kind of like craving that compass in a way, where it's like I really want to find something that will solidify me and center me in a very, where not only am I logically aligned, but spiritually aligned.
Right.
And because I'm so much in my head, a lot of times I'm not in my spirit. I'm not in that sort of next level of where I dwell. And so now it's kind of like, as I'm growing in emotional maturity a little, I'm like, maybe it would be good to start like bringing that in a little bit more. And I think I've also shied away from it because a lot of that is centered on feelings and emotions, which
right.
is like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is something that when I've done it, it feels really good.
Yeah, I think that for the fact that you already have the tendency to find that center, the tendency lends itself to that becoming easier to you than it would for me. It's a little bit more difficult for me because it's really hard to shut everything off, to shut that internal noise. Right. And I've seen all types of people get really into meditation with that, once they could kind of like hone that.
And there's different types. You know, I think when you think meditation, you're immediately thinking of yourself in like some Buddhist temple on a mountaintop. And you're like, you know, like it's so extreme, but it can just take, like even just getting ready in the morning and giving yourself half an hour of just slowly enjoying a cup of coffee and being in your thoughts and, you know, being thankful for a day or whatever. It can be very peaceful and calming. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that the one thing that, that people would also kind of compare to extroverted intuition is like, for example, right? So like your extroverted counterpart, which is like an ENTP, like my really close friend, you know, he's an ENTP. And one thing I noticed for him is that like he'll, like if he wants to go on an adventure, just like adventure, just anywhere, right? He's gonna go first, you know, like no matter what. And then like along the... And then along the line, he'll be like, might start thinking about something else or try to apply to the situation. I find that with being an introvert, you tend to hesitate before you act.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
But not in different ways. Like, for example, it's not, there's a pattern. There's a process, because of course there's a process.
Right.
It's more like the decision will be made, but there's a gap between decision and action. So it's like I'll know what I'm doing, but I'm not gonna just go do it. Like, who do you think this is? I'm gonna think about it, think about possible outcomes, plan it out, rehearse it, you know, and then I will act. Yeah. But like you like know yourself well enough, but you don't just kind of like go off spontaneously. And I'm so in awe of people that can do it and do it successfully. You know what I mean? Like, how did you just pick up, buy a plane ticket at the airport, and you had a great trip and you didn't have a crisis? You know?
Right. Like, you didn't freak out.
Yeah, exactly. But it's good for us to be coupled with people like that.
Absolutely.
Because they like bring us out of that, and they're kind of like, no, just go with the flow, you know? And you're like, no. But then once you do it, it feels really good.
I think one of the best like relationship pairings is definitely like, well, two things. One.
So I'm sorry. Who would pair well with me? ENTP?
No, I was just saying that's the extroverted version of yourself. So like you'll see a lot of yourself in that person, but it's just like it'll look to you as being more impulsive.
Right.
It'll look to you as being more whatever gregarious or whatever it may be. But it's kind of like the same sort of thing. Same thing with me and like an ENTJ, for example. But yeah. So like so with ENTPs, I'll notice that. For example, like even me, like with my introverted tendencies, I'll rehearse phone calls.
Oh yeah.
I definitely rehearse. There's an extrovert over there looking at me strangely.
I'll rehearse hello.
Yeah, I know. I rehearse it. Yeah.
And it's pathetic. You hate yourself, but at the same time, you're like, this is how I know how to be.
No, I'll rehearse it, and I think I also will. I'll have a plan and just like working to it. The only thing is, and I can say that. With turbulent personalities, but also with introverted intuition, it's very easy to kind of get mentally lost in the sauce. You know, and that's the part that you have to end up working towards and working against, because and this is something that, you know, kind of brings it all together as we go to introverted sensing, is that the psyche always longs to be whole. You know?
Yes.
So if you're, for example, for you as an introverted thinker, you're always moving towards extroverted feeling.
Yes.
You're always moving towards that harmony and that family and that sort of like caring for others, doting for others. Like you're working towards it. It's there, but it doesn't come as a priority.
Right.
It's not the priority, but you're always trying. And kind of the way I like to think of it is kind of like, I don't know what the word I'm thinking of, maybe like a funnel, in that like the shorter part is that inferior function, and then the wider part is like your dominant. And so it's kind of like, it's the horizon you're working towards that you never quite get to, but you're always working towards it.
Yeah, and you know, it makes sense because I was thinking this morning, we had a New Year's Eve party, and I like hosting. I love cooking for people and all those things, but you wouldn't expect that of an introvert to all of a sudden be like, let me just invite 25 people to my house, you know? But it's really nice because I can just create an environment and serve and please, and then just kind of like distance myself and be like, you guys mingle.
Do you take breaks
from the party?
Yeah.
Without unconsciously, yeah. Like I'll just kind of separate myself a little bit.
I've heard this,
and breathe a little, and I won't even think about doing it. I'll just find something. I'll be like, oh, I gotta go check on something in my room. Yeah. Like 10 minutes later, I'm back. Yeah. But it's more like I can create this very fun environment and live vicariously through
oh my God, I agree with that.
Fun, you know? And so, like, even at parties and whatever, my favorite thing to do is to just sit and watch how other people interact. And I love looking at, like, how someone will tell a joke or how someone is trying to get the attention of someone else in the room.
Oh my God, yeah, I love like watching those dynamics.
Right.
I remember being
in it.
Yeah, I remember being even in kindergarten, and then we'd have like a free time, and I'd be off doing something by myself, and my teacher would be like, "Oh, why weren't you like engaging with everyone?" I was like, I just like being around people and just like listening. I said that at like 5, and she's like, "Oh,
I just like being on the fringes."
Yeah, I just like
don't you
here.
understand?
Yeah, like and I feel like I'm absorbing people's energy that way. So that's something that we definitely share. And then that goes in perfectly with introverted sensing, which is her tertiary. The way they describe in myers-briggs, like your tertiary function, it's kind of like a teenager. So it's kind of like if it was a car, it's like driving the wheel is your dominant, and then like to the passenger is your auxiliary, and then the teenager's in the back. And that it's a developed function. It's not fully developed though.
When it's not developed, does that mean that it has like yet to show itself in your lifespan?
It will show itself in your lifestyle. If anything, like, you're probably past that right now.
What's the tertiary for me?
It's introverted sensing.
Okay,
you're in it. You're in introverted sense. Like, there's no reason why you wouldn't be at this point. Right. But once again, because in terms of what you're gonna reach to solve a problem, it's 3. You're not using. Well, all of us, we're not using it enough to be masters of it. Right. One thing that I love watching is watching people in their dominant space just effortlessly being a master of it. You know what I mean? So with the tertiary, it's a nice reprieve for people. So it's kind of the way in which people relax.
Or get out of themselves.
Yeah. Whatever that opposite is. So for you with the sensing, being that it's 3rd, this stops you from being an actual sensor. You're not someone that primarily lives in your senses. But then you can become that person and use that wherever. So for example, for introverted sensing versus extroverted, I actually like these two because extroverted sensing, which is what INTJs have, is very like, it's very in the moment, and it's about grabbing opportunities in the moment. Introverted sensing is about reflecting on the past and bringing those positive memories into the present.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like how I did this, how this happened, this memory. I'm going to compare my present to that to make myself more comfortable in this moment.
Okay. All right.
So that's So that could be anything from like positive memories as a child, or things certain like certain smells or scents, or basically anything sensory from your past that was positive, and trying to integrate that into your present.
Right. I can't even think of an instance when I've actually done that. I mean, I think we all kind of randomly will have like just smells come to us out of nowhere, but I don't know if I've ever consciously done that. I don't know. Like introverted says.
Are you into history?
Yes.
You're into nostalgia. So I don't think you would know this, but maybe you do know it.
Like, not a lot of nostalgia for nostalgia's sake.
No.
I'm always
it has to be connected to you. Right. So for example, right, a lot of people kind of only consume. Okay, let's put it this way, right? So let's say you had a parent that grew up in the 70s, right?
Right.
And now there's all this newfangled music and the hippity hop.
Do I listen more to like classic rock than like?
But specifically with someone that has introvert sensing, it's like the stuff you grew up with. There's like a time period for stuff that you're gonna consume, and at a certain point you kind of stop. Right? Okay. So for example, like if I'm trying to think. But wait. But it's going to be a little bit farther in the past for you. Because it's not going to be wholly yours. It's more like like a collective nostalgia in a way. I'm trying to think how I can... Okay, I got it. So like, let's say you're hanging out with your friends and you're talking about, I don't even know, like movies or funk or whatever, and they're kind of like just more into the past 15 years of music.
Oh, and I'll go back like 50.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's something that you'd more so be likely to do.
Right.
That makes
perfect sense.
Yeah, and to find find comfort in it too. Kind of like it. Like
solace. Yeah, very much so.
And I've heard you, at least, and even if you look at her Instagram, I've seen you like I know you're really into museums and stuff, but I know you like soul from the 70s.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pretty much, I mean, like, art-wise, like before 75. Let's just cap it at 80. Like 1980 and prior, I'm like, that's a sweet spot.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'm like 1990 and prior.
Right. If it's way, and there's something about it also where it's kind of like, some people like, for example, if we're speaking contemporary art, they like the edginess of an expression that is of the moment. So any like sculpture that's abstract and kind of like, elicits analysis or reaction about our present world, I'll look at it and I'll say, and it's kind of like I enjoy that, but how can you truly appreciate it if you don't have the distance of time? You know what I mean? Like there was.
Oh, that's perfect.
There was a professor who told me that you don't truly understand a generation or generational trends until 100 years have passed, because humanity kind of needs that hindsight to really understand it and be like, that's what we were doing. That's what that time was about.
Perfect explanation on like how introverted sensing would view that. Because the opposite would be is that I actually would like really like abstract art. Like I don't need that distance.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
But also it's like,
I don't
for example,
personal revelations from abstract art because it's too close to me.
It's too close. Yeah. So like, for example, are you someone that you like the original of something? Like you like, as like, as opposed to anything that's like too modern in technology. So like, let's say for books, for example, are you someone that really prefers like an actual book as opposed to Kindle?
Yeah. Very much. But like, I mean, I love anything that will like allow people to read personally. Like,
of course, whatever it is. Yeah.
But yeah, I do love the like tactile sensation of feeling the book, and interacting with it and all of those things, and sometimes making notes and margins and all of that. But yeah, absolutely.
I find that people with introverted sensing, they have there's like less of a comfortability with things that are a little too technology, like too much technology. Like there's a kind of a distancing from that, as opposed to for people with like extroverted sensing, right? Because people with extroverted sensing, it would be more like, I see the efficiency in something, so I care more about the efficiency than it actually being original. Right.
And I think it depends also on the circumstance. Like if it comes to work and something that is completely task oriented, and it depends on technology, then I'm totally for it. But if it's more like a personal process or a hobby or something I'm doing on my own, then I probably won't cut corners and I'll take the long route. Because
absolutely, that fits.
Because it's sort of like you I don't know, you just connect to it differently. Like in school, people would be typing on their laptops and I can't retain information that way. I have to handwrite it. And I'm handwriting and writing, I retain it differently. Or like cooking or whatever, like I like taking the long route that you can kind of reflect and dwell while you're doing things, because there's not, I don't know, it's just a different process. I get to make those own rules.
Yeah, I think that perfectly fits, and that'll kind of segue us into extroverted feeling. But one thing I also know with that combination of people that have introvert sensing and extrovert feeling is how would you describe your value system in terms of being conservative versus liberal or traditional versus more modern?
I would say politically, I'm liberal. I'd say,
Okay, this is good.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a little break there. So I think that we were talking about if you would label your politics and values in terms of being traditional or modern or conservative or liberal.
Yeah, I think politically, I usually gravitate towards liberal values. And I think personally, I sort of tend to follow like, I don't know about conservative models, because there's nothing, I always leave room for, I don't know, different things and open ideas, but I'm sort of traditional in myself, but I'm not bound to it.
Right.
You know, so I just sort of kind of like live in that space, but I can sort of try different things here and there.
I find it interesting because with, I think almost always, let me think about this for 1 second. Okay, someone call me out if I'm wrong, but I think almost always extroverted feeling goes with introverted sensing because they kind of balance each other in terms of, well, let's put it this way, right? So when it comes to extroverted feeling, right? Let me actually read it. I'm gonna read you,
Would you say that INTPs have introverted sensing? Is that
introverted sensing
right?
is 3,
That's
tertiary. So now we're getting to extroverted feeling, which is basically your baby, your toddler.
Gotcha.
Your
That's in the back seat.
Yeah, it's all the way in the back.
That's in the trunk. Like you're not even riding with us.
Yeah, it's basically the baby, but it's the baby also in a way that it demands attention, and it's always attention seeking. Right, for everyone.
As in, like, it's a part of my personality that is always trying to come through?
Yeah, it's actually driving your personality without you knowing it.
Extroverted feeling. That's interesting.
It's driving your personality, but...
And that's also a little terrifying because it's not conscious. So
it's not conscious.
And I don't...
It's basically kind of, almost one of your unconscious...
right,
yeah.
and so it's almost like a part of myself that I don't know, I can't control. It's
yeah, in a way. And it also will show itself at times, especially if you're in a bad place in your life, in a more immature way.
Okay.
Right. So, that's not really a definition.
It's not fully developed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
If it was fully developed, like it would be for like an ESFJ or
ENFP even.
or an ENF. No, ENFPs have introverted feeling. An ENFJ, my mother's an ENFJ. You'd have a better command over it. Okay, they have a terrible definition for this. Hold on a second. What the hell? Okay, I'm just gonna like tell you about it because it was a terrible definition. But basically, like with extroverted feeling, it takes into consideration generally accepted, and this is gonna sound bad, but it's not, generally accepted societal norms.
Okay.
In the sense that and the reason it does that is because it's looking for external harmony in the environment, right? So for INTJs that have introverted feeling, that's more value on the individual and whatever crazy stuff they have going on. So let's say if I had that higher in my stack, if I was like an INFP or an ISFP, like ISFPs are like Michael Jackson or INFPs are like Kurt Cobain, people like that, where it's like very much like it doesn't matter how it looks to other people, as long as for them they feel like they have a genuine self-expression. Kind of like F other people. Integrity, right. Extrovert feeling's not like that. It's not about that because it is looking for that harmony in its environment. And it's always trying to create harmony amongst the people around them. So that makes sense to me when earlier you were like, even though you may have boundaries with things, like, and eventually you're gonna end up helping people. Yeah, eventually, and that's the great thing about extroverted feeling. Like, it's kind of like a pro and con, because I see extroverted feelers like, like, for example, like, I feel like they're more likely than introverted feelers to like give to homeless people, give money to homeless people, or to like.
But someone who's extroverted feeler dominant.
Yes. Dominant.
Right.
But it's still in you to want to make sure that everyone around you is good, even if it's on a surface level. Which is why people with extroverted feeling also are really good at cooking, and they love cooking, because that's a way that on a surface, to please people, and on a very surface level, at least take care of everyone.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And so that's what I was saying. That's like what is ultimately kind of driving your personality in terms of what you would want. But at the same time, you can't, because of everything else before that, you can't prioritize it all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's like I'm not even built that way, even if I wanted to.
Yeah, even if you wanted to, but it's like it's there. And I'll tell you the cons that are with it. And I find this, like, I definitely find it like in my mom and like other people. The cons I see with extroverted feeling is kind of like, it's kind of like putting up a wall to things that are like too beneficial to like one person. So it's like, you
mean like if this only benefits one person, I'm not gonna do it because it's not enough.
And it's not enough, and in that way it kind of makes extrovert feelers a little bit of martyrs in a way, because they're gonna put like the needs of the group even above their own. And introvert feelings is about putting your needs first as the individual.
Right.
So the con of that sometimes is just maybe like beating others into submission. I don't personally like, I don't think that like INTPs generally have that. I've seen it, like, definitely I see with ENFP. Oh, I'm not even gonna no, but it's like we know people like that. Like, if they were here, I could explain it to them better. But like, we know people that will do that. Will beat others into submission, because not because they're trying to be dicks about it.
Right.
Literally because they're like, that messes up the group. That messes it up for everyone else. Who cares if this just helps you?
Right.
This is happening up for the crew.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's what it looks like.
Because of those communism. You will suffer, but for the benefit of all.
You have people that, like, even if you were auxiliary extroverted feeling, like an ISFJ or something, you like, I know Mother Teresa was an ISFJ, because there is a little bit of a martyrdom there. It's a little bit of other people's needs are important than mine, more important than mine.
Right.
And so like, that's essentially, those are your 4 functions. That's essentially like wrapping up of what it is. Like, is there any random thoughts? Or
I mean, I'm just wondering, because I'm all about like developing.
Absolutely.
Right. So I'm wondering, sort of like, how does this work for the future? Especially like, I just turned 30, so this is a new developmental part in my life where it's kind of like, I always laugh when people say that they loved their teen years or they loved their 20s, because I'm kind of like, what?
Don't go there with me.
You know what I mean? Like my teen years were like one big blur where I felt like, and maybe this is because, probably now, realizing it's because of my introversion, I felt like the world was just moving so fast and I couldn't catch up.
Oh yeah,
and I was always
absolutely
behind the curve. And so my friends would be doing these things and I'm like, but I'm still processing what happened last week. Like, how are y'all already on to the next?
Yeah.
And my 20s was just one constant scream.
I just see you scream, just like
very much so. Yeah. It was just constant kind of like, what am I doing? Like,
I feel the same way. I'm right there with you.
And it wasn't until kind of like, it's very interesting, at 27, it was like everything just kind of like, and just stopped. Everything calmed down in a way where I was like, I think I kind of get myself a little bit. I understand how I tick. I'm understanding a little bit more how I function, my boundaries, and all of those things. And it interestingly is at that time, even though I gleaned that information, it was also now about the intense trauma of understanding my weaknesses and really addressing them, because your 20s
Jesus
are all
Christ.
kind of like, I'm okay, I'm fine, I know what I'm doing, you know, even though you kind of don't, you don't have like, not everyone has the emotional strength to really be like, let me take responsibility for my shortcomings and address them head on. And now it's kind of like the frustration of, okay, these are the areas that I need to fix, and that's where we are. And so now that I'm like thinking about the future, it's sort of like, should I work more on becoming more like extroverted feeling, or, you know, is that going to be like way too extreme and it's going to like put me in a bad place?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because they're like, the functions develop with your age. So like between 20, they literally put this range of between 25 and 49, you're gonna start developing that inferior function. And the funny thing about it is like, and I gave the example before of, you know, the 45-year-old divorcee guy that like gets like a Corvette and starts banging 25-year-olds because he's like, oh shit, he's developing his like extrovert sensing or whatever it may be, and it's coming out crazy, because he's like, I have all this time to make up for it. And I do find that with both intuitives and introverts, because all of those actual practical external things that give external validation versus internal validation come so last. And then you're like, okay, but I gotta do all the things now, you know? And I think it's also,
all of the experience.
It's kind of like, and they talk about it in DBT, where it's like, you have to do two things. You have to like accept and then change. So accept the circumstances, accept your tendencies, but then also make strides to be kind to yourself. And especially with INTPs, I think they would benefit from like labeling experiences as like experiments. Like a self experiment of trying something new. And I think that if you're talking about getting close to other people, I think it's always going to come through shared interests or shared values. It's not going to be just meeting people just to, hey, I'm just out here trying to meet people. It's going to be, I like people that, I don't even know, like whatever it is your interests are. You're going to bond over something that has nothing to do with people, but you're going to do it with a person. And I think that looking forward to that in your 30s now, especially, and making those connections, like that's what's going to bring you just like satisfaction, you know, because then you're going to get the people are going to be there, and it's going to be for something that you feel is worthwhile.
Yeah, because then you really have to like stick to that inner compass of like what matters to me. Yeah, you know, like you can't shove yourself to the side for the sake of other people or for the sake of experiences. I think especially with my personality type, but I think also it's interesting that you mentioned kind of like experimental or like labeling it as an experiment, because I think one of the as a trend, the things that I've done in my life that are most different from my norm were at times when I was performative in myself, where like I would be presented with something that would be completely different from what I would ever expect to do or people would expect of me. Oh, that's true. And then I would think, okay, well, let me see what I'm made of. Let me try pushing this. Yourself, right? Where it's kind of like, I'm not going to like set my camp here. I'm just going to visit this world for a little bit and see. And it gives me the space of not committing, but trying something new. And I'll, you know, it's works, like they say, happiness exists right outside your comfort zone. Oh yeah, yeah. So you just kind of like step to the fringes a little bit, but you know you're sort of. You always have that. You can always have that safety net. Yeah. And that's something you have to always remember. Like it's even like me going to a party in my head. I'm like, okay, so what's the escape plan? Yes. If I have to escape, and a lot of times I haven't used it, but I like knowing that it's there. You need to have it. It's a security blanket. It's just how you cope. Yeah. Okay, so it's a tradition. We do these 10 questions. They originally come from, oh gosh. Is this from the Inside the Actors Studio? Yeah. The 10 questions. But they're better known as the questions that James Lipton asks as every guest at the end of the Inside the Actors Studio show. Shout out to James. Yeah, it's the Pivot questionnaire developed by Bernard Pivot. And so just whatever comes to your mind with it, it's just fun. So number 1, what is your favorite word? Hue. H-U-E, not the name. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Any follow with it? I think just it kind of I don't know, there's something I remember when I was talking to a friend of mine about something in my 20s where I just kind of felt like it was a moment of awakeness awakening, I felt like I was looking at life and colors were crisper but not different, just gradations of it. And a lot of the times when I think about where I am in my life, it's kind of like, how clearly do I feel things? How clearly am I seeing things? And a lot of that, sometimes when in those moments, I'm thinking of it in terms of color and vision. And so I don't know, it's just a nice word, yeah.
Nice. What is your least favorite word?
Yikes.
Alternatively, what word do you hate?
Never.
Ah, nice. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Possibility. And I think within that, like experimentation, anything that's always away from the norm, but trying new things. Yeah.
What turns you off?
Rigidity.
What is your favorite curse word in any language?
Ooh, okay. I say coño a lot. And people are kind of like, wow, your mouth is so filthy. And like, but for Venezuelans, that's like hello, you know? So it really doesn't feel that bad.
Nice. What sound or noise do you love?
The cello.
Oh my. What sound or noise do you hate?
Babies crying when you can't make it stop.
This is the second time someone said that.
It's one thing about a baby crying, but it's another thing if like you can't make it stop.
You're the third person to say that.
It's such a source of anxiety.
Yeah. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
A chef, a pastry chef.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
What profession would you not like to do?
Basically what I'm doing now.
Isn't that
Which
all
is
of us?
like, all right, welcome to the millennial life. Anything that's clerical has no human interaction and is the same every day.
Oh my God, yeah.
You just feel my soul withering, you know?
Oh my God.
And some people are like, I love that sort of reliability. And it's like, it's all you, man.
Good on that. And lastly, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I'm actually a lot cooler than people think. You know? I would love for him to be like, all that stuff that people said I wouldn't be okay with, it's fine.
Nice. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's good. Well, I want to thank Lily for being here again. And if you just want to like shout out your social handle.
Follow me on Instagram for food and museum trips, Lily Bo Billy. We'll link it below.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Lily.
Thank you. My pleasure. Bye.